Hi guys, it's Emily from Novel Novels and welcome to today's video. It is my top 10 historical fiction. Now, I will probably forget at least one book on this list. But do you know what? I've been loving historical fiction. This is, what I would like to do is obviously a lot more often is go through some of the books on my shelf that I've got that match all the genres that I love. And you guys know that historical fiction is my favourite genre. So in the future there will be chick lit, there will be classics. There is even going to be a thriller, I think, next year. I think I might try and do that because I'm going to try and read a lot more thrillers in that time. But yeah, let's start off with the best. Let's start off with my historical fiction. Now, I won't tell you my favourite one, and you'll have to guess which out of all of these is, and I'll tell you right at the very end which is my favourite historical fiction book. So I'm going to start off with one that's this one. Snowflower and the Secret Fan. I read this for Scooby-Doo-a-thon and I absolutely loved it. I've not read historical fiction based in this area, I think it was based in China. I want to read a lot more of this. It really tackles a lot of the issues that happened over there. And I think that's what's important about historical fiction. It does tackle really true things that happened and traumatic things that went on. And I think to me that was really hard. It was really hard hitting. And although I really loved this book, I think, you tackle some of the triggers in it are really important. But the writing is beautiful. Lisa C is amazing and I really want to pick up more. The characters, the Snowflower, oh my goodness, her character was amazing. But it was actually her friend, there was Lisa C, it's just writing it so beautifully. I literally could tell you these characters. They're absolutely amazing. So Snowflower was one girl and there was another lady. So it's really, really important. And you read about all these friendships that happened back then. It was just amazing. So Snowflower was actually the friend of the lead character in this. And do you know what? The way the writing is, the way it describes her, she was the one that at first she seems very full of, like she has everything ahead of her. And she looked like she was opulent, but you find out things aren't always what they seem. But I love the friendship on this. Friendship to me is something that really stands out in my life. So, that sort of friendship between the two girls in this was absolutely incredible. And I loved it. I love the family element in it as well. But definitely one that I would recommend to you all. This is one, it's a wartime one. You guys knew I'd have to do that. It's Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce. I love this. This is a chick lit, but as well as a historical fiction. But it's really tackles a lot of things that happened in wartime. And the lady here, Mrs. Bird, basically, Emmeline Lake dreams of becoming a fearless lady war correspondent. Unfortunately, Emmy finds herself employed as a typist. So it tackles about some of the things that happened. Back then she wasn't well off. She was just a typist, but she ended up replying as like an agony aunt. But you also hear about things the bombings that happened in London. This is really set in London in the war, and oh my goodness, you really felt for these characters with what they went through, and it really reminds you how bad the wartime in London was and how bad London got hit by the war. To me, that's why this is a very good historical fiction book. It is slightly more chick lit, so if you're not really into that area, then maybe avoid this one. But it is still beautifully written. The characters are a lot stronger and they have a lot more layers than you would actually believe from the start of this book. It's not too long. It's only about not even 300 pages, but it's really good and it's a really lovely read. So pick this up. I picked that up because of Julie at Hungry Bookworm. She had it and we buddy read it. But do you know what? I really loved that. Now, actually, the book that I would really rave about, Charlie's Got. I know I've raved about this. Hopefully, by the time this goes live, I would have got it back. But it is one of my favourite books of all time, and that is Old Baggage by Lisa Evans. Now, this was set in just after the suffragette era, but the lead character was a suffragette, and she had this strength that, oh my goodness. But to me, she had this lady who was almost like a servant, but not necessarily, and their relationship was quite important. And it talks about the strength of this secondary character and what she went through, and how she didn't necessarily appear as one of the big suffragettes, but she really struggled, and she was actually a lot stronger than she appeared. And to find out what she was going through, and actually I think that's what stands out to me, is sometimes it's not always the lead characters in these books that are amazing or that appear, they're the ones that sort of stand out to you, but it's actually the secondary characters, to me, that are the ones I fall in love with. And I certainly found this. But, oh my goodness, hearing about some of the stuff that happened with the suffragettes was amazing. Hearing about the time that it's between the First and Second World War, and again, a time when it was quite hard, and women really had to fight for their rights. And there were some girls of different sort of monetary values, different areas. So some were like higher class than lower class and things like that. And again, it's not necessarily your class that defines you, it's the strength within your personality. And to me, the suffragette, that women of strength, that's something that stands out in Old Baggage. And actually her second book, Crooked Heart, that follows on to that, it's not necessarily a second book, you know, it's the sequel to that one, is absolutely another amazing, beautifully written book. They're both top of my range of books, and I love Lisa Evans, the way she writes. She's also a great author, so guys, check her out. But that book I loved. And I've done things in a different order, so I'm going to have to go and find... I'm going to show this one off. Remembered! This is going to be on my wrap-up that will be appearing at the end of the month, so I won't tell you too much. Charlie has lent me this book. I wish I could say given it to me. She's got too many good books. But this is one that's sort of set in the start of in 1910. I've literally only just finished this, so I can literally just say, by the time this would have gone up again, might have been spoken about. But this is set in 1910 in Philadelphia, when Philadelphia is burning, and the last place Spring wants to be is in a rundown coloured section of the hospital, surrounded by people. But her son has got caught up in something that was quite big, and she has to get almost pass him on to the next life before he dies. She has to tell him the story of how she became, and the story of how her and her sister became. And her sister's like a ghost in this. It's her dead sister that's also talking in this. And you find out about their mum and what she went through. This tackles a lot of emancipation. It tackles slavery. It tackles rape. It tackles so many hard-hitting issues that went on back then. But it's written so beautifully. I cried a lot in this book. So be warned, there is a lot of trigger warnings. But again, it's so beautifully written, and the characters, oh my goodness. You really fall in love with them. And it teaches you a lot about strength and what you do for your family. Because in the end, your family come first. And I think to me, and sisters again, that was a really big thing in this. And I really loved this. Spring is an amazing lady. And I really fell in love with her. But yeah, definitely pick this up. It's beautiful, and I thank Charlie for lending me this. Now, the next book is The Colour Purple. I don't know how much of a historical fiction this is, or if it's a classic, but to me it's historical fiction. It's, again, set in a similar time when slavery and things like that, and when the black and white. I don't know the exact era this is set in, but it is, everyone knows The Colour Purple. It is such a beautiful book. It really is a classic. It's a lady that's writing letters, and she starts off by writing Get Letters to God. She's a girl in this. And then you have a second half where her sister's writing, and you also get the two letters between them, which is beautiful. So it's a letter writing format. Each page is quite short. Each page, no, there's not too much pressure. It's not too long a book. Again, it's like 240 odd pages, but it's really hard hitting. Similar to Remembered, but I absolutely loved it, and I'm so glad I read it. So thank you, Charlie. That's another one she encouraged me to read. She really raves about Alice Walker, and I've heard she's an amazing author, so I would definitely be picking up more of her books. Oh, by the way, on that Remembered, the author of Remembered, that was her first book, so I'm looking out for more of those. So yeah, there too. And I've got 1,000 Splendid Suns, which I've just done in another video that would have already been up. This is a beautiful book. It is set in Kabul, over that era, and it's set when the Taliban is about to take over. So it runs over sort of the course of quite a few years. Miriam is the lead lady in this, and she's set to marry Rashid. Nearly 2 decades later, a friendship grows between Mariam and a local teenager, Layla. There's strong ties between mother and daughter. When the Taliban takes over, life becomes desperate. So this really is set in a very hard-hitting issues. There's a lot of war, again, rape. A lot of issues are really tackled in this, but the writing is beautiful, and you hear so much about what happened over there. I loved the next book, Carlito Rossini's next book, which is The Kite Runner after that. But they're two books I really recommend, so pick that up. The next one, I've apparently gone and given away my copy of Call the Midwife. I want a new copy because I shouldn't have given it away, because I've just realised I've got the whole series other than that. So I've got the rest of the series, but not the first one. But Call the Midwife, again, to me, that whole series of books is great. To me, the first one is one I would recommend. Simone, you've got to read the first one before we read more in the series. We went from the first to the third, and that didn't work. You need to read like two, at least the second one, and then we can read the fourth one. But yeah, the first one is amazing. It's set in the 1950s in London, and it really sort of sets up. You guys have all seen, a lot of you have seen the TV series, but to me, the writing in this is beautiful. It's about a midwife who's just left training. She goes on into being a midwife in a nunnery. That's where they worked in London. And they go off and really do a lot. Most of their work is in the houses of people when they're giving birth. They tackle a lot of things that happened back then and how women had to give birth in so dramatic areas. The cleanliness was a big issue. People that were doing multiple births, that have one baby after another baby. Poverty, again, is something that got tackled in this. But yes, it's only in the 1950s, but to me, that's still historical fiction. And that's still a very hard-hitting. It's true life. Jennifer Worth wrote on her about herself. Everything is autobiographical, which is beautiful. But again, her writing is amazing. Jennifer Worth has a real knack with the words. So check out the Call the Midwife series, and I can't wait to read the second one when Simone's read the first. So, the next one. Now, again, I haven't got the copy. I've been currently reading the Philippa Gregory, the Plantagenet series. I've read 2, 3, and I think I've read some of the later ones. I've read 2 actually. I've read the second one, and I've read a lot of the later ones. I've read The Other Berlin Girl, which I loved. I think I've lent that copy of it over to someone else, one of my mum's friends. What, Mum, can I have that back, please? I've lent my mum The Berlin Inheritance, which I want to read. But the one I've just read, which I loved, was The White Queen. And that, to me, is one of my top 10 historical fiction books. I love The White Queen. I love the way it sets up for a lot of things about what happened with the Lost Princes. So it tackles some of those issues as well. It was beautifully written, though. It is probably one of my favourite books. But I'm going to show you a picture of the one that I'm going to be reading next month. So you guys are getting a sneaky peek. I'll be reading this next month, which is The Red Queen. My mum said, again, it's very much like the first one, in the fact, the second one, in the fact it's very hard-hitting. I don't know much about this, so heiress to the Red Rose of Lancaster, Mary Beaufort never surrendered to her belief that the house is true ruler of England, and she has a great destiny ahead of her. But her ambitions are disappointed when her sainted cousin Henry VI of England fails to recognise her kindred spirit. So this is about Margaret, I believe, and the York dynasty. Again, it's sort of set around the same era, but it's on the other side. So the White Queen was one side of the War of Roses, and the Red Queen is the other side. So this is going to be really interesting. I can't wait to read this. It's not too long. It's about sort of 370 odd pages. It's not too bad, but it looks beautiful, and I love that. I look forward to hearing her side of it. But I certainly loved the first, but I certainly loved the second one, the White Queen. And I look forward to, I think once I've read this one, I know I own the first in the series, so I will go and read that. And then I hope to try and buy all the series and read them in the right order after that. But Philippa Gregory is a big, one of my favourite authors. I love Tudor fiction. I love it. I've read Alison Weir, one of Alison Weir books, and I wasn't as keen on that, but I have got another couple of her books that I'm going to try. Because Julie liked her. And if Julie likes her, then she's got to be good. But yeah, certainly, if you like Tudor fiction, read Philippa Gregory. She is absolutely amazing. I know Berna reads them as well, and she's got that series. So, I think I'm talked about all of them. Aha! No, I haven't. I haven't told you another one of my favourites, which is The Binding. Love this book. This is going up there with Adam Kay. It's probably one of my favourite books of the year. Tom from Tom Reads Things loves this. He's raved about it. I love it. Oh my goodness. If you've not read it, read it. It's the best. It's one of the best books ever. This is about how you bind all your bad stuff that's happened to you in a book. It's magical realism. It's beautiful. This author has got it on par. It is one of the best books. It talks about historical fiction. It talks about fantasy. It's got magic. It's got love. It's got everything you could possibly want, and I love it. This is Charlie's copy, but I believe she's got me my own copy for Christmas, so I can't wait to get that. Now, I am torn between that being my absolute top favourite or the next one. So the next one is The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Another wartime book, yeah, guys, I know I like that one. This is so hard-hitting, it is unblooming believable, but it is beautifully well written. This is the true story of Laos, I'm not going to say his name right, Sokolov, I think. I know I've not said this right. It's set in 1942 when he arrives at Auschwitz. He's given the job of tattooing other prisoners marked for survival, scratching numbers onto their arm. And he goes on to create Holocaust. This talks about one of the hardest. There were some really bad concentration camps in Germany and in that area. It's not necessarily just Germany, but this really tackles some of what happens in there and what he saw and what he went through. To me, like, I look back on this time, and you quote me if I'm wrong, because I know a lot of you may argue with me on this. Everyone thinks that Hitler was a bad guy, and he really was. Hitler did amazing things, did some of the worst things, but the doctor that was in this book, that was the one that led some of the horrible. There is a guy in this that does some of the worst things ever. He ran the sort of like hospital wing, and he did experiments on people, on children, men that lost bits of them, private bits, the things that it did to females, private areas, to children, to women, to the rape. He did some of the most horrible things that you could ever imagine, and this touches briefly on that. And to me, that killed me. That guy, it goes up there, in my opinion, with Hitler as one of the worst people in the world. Worst people that's ever existed, because what he did to people is wrong. And that, to me, is amazing. But this author, there is a love story in it, which I love. And that kind of gives you hope. But it's a very hard-hitting book. It will make you cry your eyes out. I've now got the Silka story, which is the follow-on book from this, that tackles one of the other prisoners and her story. And I'm going to read that this month, hopefully, if I get around to it. But yeah, I love this book. It's one of the best books that I've ever read in my life. And to me, I'm going to say, actually, the top 2 historical fiction to me are... It's these 2! I love them! Very, very different, but very amazing. One's got magic, one's got real, but both made me cry, and both I love. Now, as time goes on, if I do another one of these videos next year, there may be different books in this list, because I plan to sort of get my historical fiction and widen my boundaries, try different eras, try different countries. I really want to tackle that, because to me, historical fiction is amazing. There is so much we could see, so much we could watch, so many different books that could be classed as historical fiction. And I think, to me, that's amazing. We are what our history makes us, and that's something what I love about history. History is what makes us who we are. We are nothing without our predecessors. And I know for certainly for me, my strength from my grandmother, my 2 grandmothers, and my mum, they're my history, as well as being my mum's being my present. But to me, they're women that I look up to, and I hope in time my children and my children's children will hear good stories of me. But history is what makes me who I are. So I love historical fiction. Another video where I'm getting emotional. This is not a very good day today. But anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and not subscribed yet, ring on my ding-a-ling. And I hope you're all having a great time. And let me know your favourite historical book. Love to know it. Take care. Bye-bye.